Good afternoon, everyone. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 829. I'm joined by a really special guest. His name is Ryan Spilborghs. He's a former MLB outfielder for the Colorado Rockies, and now he's an MLB Network radio host. He's an analyst for the game. He's one of the best out there. I just want to say thank you, Ryan, for joining the show. It's truly an honor. How are you and your family doing so far?
We're doing good. Appreciate it. Yeah. Call me Spilly. So whenever I get called Ryan, I'm in trouble. So call me Spilly. My family's good. It's crazy now that, we're starting to see life kind of get back to normal.
Yeah.
Last week, our kids are both like very active athletes. And it's from my perspective now as a former athlete, where I see myself as a parent first, and I'm watching my kids fall in love with sports. My daughter's like super in love with soccer, and my son is just caught the baseball bug. I am starting to reflect on like my parents and how much they had to drive. Like that's like the true baseball sports parents or soccer parents. They're basically Uber. We are taxis, and we're there to pick them up and get ice cream. So it's like best parenting advice for anybody that might have an athlete. Be positive. Don't talk about the game on the way home. Go get an ice cream and just enjoy what's going on.
Yeah, Father's Day must have been a special day for you when you were playing too, and after your career.
You know what? It's weird because my kids don't remember me as a player.
Yeah.
They only know me as a broadcaster, and they see highlights on occasion.
Okay.
But they didn't know me as a baseball player. So Father's Day was never, I mean, it's also right in front of my wife's birthday.
Oh wow.
So we celebrate my wife's birthday more than we celebrate Father's Day. But I mean, I would say in the last 8 years, because my kids are 10 and 11, I've been much more of a father since I retired from sport than when I was before. I mean, to be honest, my wife was essentially, she was a single mom that happened to have a working husband that played baseball. I mean, it's really, my time was not dedicated to family at all. It was dedicated to being a professional athlete. So I cared more about, my sleep. I had to sleep. I had to hydrate. Like you really have a craft to do in a small window of time. And you become selfish in that regard as an athlete. And what ends up happening, and certainly as you talk to parents, like athlete parents, they'll tell you they lose an edge when you become a parent. Like, and that's not a knock. You just don't have enough time in the day to be laser focused on your craft and then still be a good husband and still be a good dad and still be present. It's just, it's almost impossible from an athlete's point of view to give that. So like the best athletes in the world are selfish as you could possibly imagine. And if I was ever telling an athlete during that time frame, you have to be that way. Like, as bad as that sounds, in your career, you have to be selfish for what you have to do to prepare to be a good teammate, be a good player. And that's why it's like, if you can start a family later on in your career, you're better off, even though you have the perspective of coming home and you have a little daughter or son, like, hey, dad, like they don't care if you were 2 for 4 or 0 for 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
But you lose an edge, and there's no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to start off with your childhood. Obviously, you were born in Santa Barbara, California. What was it like growing up there as a kid? And when did you get interested in playing sports? And before deciding on baseball, did you get to play any other sports? And did you have a role model growing up?
Yeah, good question. So Santa Barbara is a small beach community in California. We're not Southern California. We're not Northern California. We're central. We're the Central Coast. We're really kind of like the start of Southern California. And baseball in our family, my mom was an immigrant from Guatemala. My dad was an immigrant from Belgium. They met at a college in Santa Barbara learning English.
Oh wow.
And baseball was not really like in their blood. It was in my mom's blood, but not my dad. My dad was more of a soccer, it was more interested in soccer. And he came over to the States when he was 15. My mom was 18 when she came over. But I'll never forget, my first team I ever played for was the West Side Boys and Girls Club T-ball team. And I actually have the jerseys sitting right behind me. It's a little
Oh wow, I see
It's
it.
a little, yeah, it's a little Dodgers jersey, and there I have a picture of my mom,
Oh
my
wow.
dad. My mom passed away in 2009,
Oh.
but she was the one that signed me up for baseball.
Hmm.
She was the one because she, as a, as an immigrant from Guatemala, Fernando Mania in Southern California was going like crazy. So my mom seeing a Mexican doing really well at the major league level fired her up, even though she's not Mexico, Guatemala, but that it was that connection. And so she just loved watching the Dodgers play. And so she signed me up for a T-ball. And the first, like that jersey, the first number I got is number 3. So as a kid, I wanted to know who was number 3 on the Dodgers. And that guy happened to be, his name was Steve Sachs.
Oh
So
wow.
Steve Sachs was my role model all through growing up. As a kid, I wanted to be Saxy. And probably one of the most important moments was there was a Dodger caravan in a, like I'm starting to fall in love with the game, and there was a Dodger caravan. So they would go around and some Dodgers would visit high schools during the off season. And at Santa Barbara High School, which I wasn't in high school yet, I was still in elementary school, but Steve Sachs and Tommy Lasorda were there. And so I
Oh,
got a chance to meet Steve Sachs, and I realized that he was about the same height as my dad. And I felt like I could be a baseball player. So I got to connect the dots with my hero, and the rest is kind of history. I mean, I benefited from the fact that my dad didn't understand the sport.
right.
So he would learn it through videos with me. We would watch videos together and we learned together. So I felt like I felt like I was kind of like a ball of clay where you could mold me, where there was no, like my dad didn't have any bad baseball habits to mess me up. It was basically I was getting taught from good baseball videos with good instruction with my dad that was reinforcing the positive lessons. So I ended up benefiting from a lot of different kind of sources.
Wow, that's amazing. And what's it like for your mother just to push you and keep you up upbeat and obviously she's the one who helped you get into this career. And what was it like just to have your mother behind your back all the time and trying to push start your career in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm still. So when she passed away in 2009, she had saw me play baseball. She never met her daughter or her granddaughter, but she was. I mean, she was cool because she knew that I loved the game, and she just made sure that I kept loving it. Like that's all. She was the most positive person you could ever meet. She was a very good athlete. She ran marathons. Um, but she never got in the way. My dad never got in the way of like my love of the game. And in fact, they did everything they possibly could. If I wanted to play, they made sure I got there. I'll never forget my dad. I'm like a junior in high school, and I'm looking to play more baseball, and he's driving me an hour and a half to go play in a wood league to get one at bat. And my mom would never really, she didn't care if I like I said, she never cared if I was 3 for 4, 4 for 4, 0 for 4. We would talk about the Lakers, we'd talk about the Dodgers, we'd go grab a slice of pizza, and we'd be mom and son. So, like her work ethic was like, I don't know, she was just a passionate person. So she always wanted me to do things that I was passionate about.
Hmm. So this is a two-part question here. What were the main things that you learned as a high school player, and did you get to play other positions in baseball before playing outfield? And the next part to this, take me back to the recruiting process. How many offers did you get? And obviously, you got to stay home. You played for University of California.
Yeah, so I played as many sports and things as I possibly could. I had a really good group of athletic friends. So we would play pickup baseball, we'd play pickup basketball, flag football. Like we would always just be playing a sport. Um, and then I had several really good coaches in high school. My high school varsity coach, which I had the pleasure of playing for, starting as a freshman in varsity, which at Santa Barbara High, I think there was like one or two others that had ever done that at that point. And his name is Fred Warwicker. And Fred was a long time high school coach. He had served in the military. He was an English literature professor, like he was really cool, well-rounded. I always tell people he would quote Beowulf. He would, recite Shakespeare poems to us. He was really just kind of very well-rounded. And his kind of how he looked at me was he saw my potential because he knows how much I loved the game. Like I literally loved being at a baseball field. And like I would, if there was somebody there to flip me baseballs, I would hit. If there's somebody there to hit me fly balls, I would take fly balls. If nobody was there, I would pick up trash. And so it's just I wanted to be around the field, and my dad and my mom were the same way. They wanted to give back and just make sure that we left things better off when we left than when we first got there. So that coach, Fred Warwicker, just kind of built confidence in me. Like the fact that he put me on the varsity as a freshman was like a huge, massive confidence builder. I also had another coach there. His name was George Remp. And George was another Vietnam vet, and he was a very successful lawyer in Santa Barbara. And he taught me something really simple. He taught me how to breathe. Like that's all he taught me. Yeah. So for 4 years in high school, it was a constant reminder to breathe. And like you would think that that's like, oh, that's not earth shattering or monumental. It is when you think about it, to take that moment to sit back and take a deep breath, when things are going crazy around you, and it translates to everything you do in life. And then as a result of being pretty decent in high school, I got a bunch of recruiting letters from all over the country. I wanted in my mind, I wanted to go to UCLA. I had gone to many baseball camps at UCSB, but I wanted to go to UCLA because of Jackie Robinson and I think the legacy and being in LA. But I called the coach, and I think it was Coach Savage. And I said, I'm not getting any recruiting letters. I'd love to come to your school. Is there any interest? And he says, you can walk on. And that was basically like, no. And UCSB, basically Bob Bronsema, who's a longtime coach there. Now he's athletic director at UCSB. He knew me since I was a little kid. And he said, look, I think you have a chance to play here at Division I. You can live in your backyard, and we'd love to help you grow. And I think that's all that I kind of needed to hear at that point, especially after kind of my dream school, USC, UCLA, didn't seem achievable. So it wasn't like it was the second best offer. It just was the more realistic offer for me to grow.
Yeah. So what was your experience like playing at University of California, staying at home, being at home, playing in front of your family and friends? And what was the atmosphere like in that stadium?
Well, I wasn't very good. That's the thing, is I left Santa Barbara High School with every single record you could imagine. Like I had them all. I had every high school record from our school, and I go to UCSB and I'm the worst player on the team. Like, and I'm not kidding. I was, the bat would get blown out of my hands. I wasn't strong. My bat speed stunk. Like I just wasn't ready to play Division I baseball. I wasn't grown up yet. I wasn't mentally prepared for it. And, like there was a time I got a hit during a scrimmage, and I think it was the first hit I had like all fall. And the pitcher that gave up the hit had to run pulls because he gave up a hit to Spilly.
Ooh.
So like, it was, it was those type of moments that really kind of ticked me off and gave me like a chip on the shoulder, but also, it was a hard lesson that I couldn't just show up from high school and expect to be a starting center fielder for a Division I program. Like it's not that easy. You have to work. And like, I really needed that. I needed that bad. And I actually even had a mentor there at UCSB. His name was Brad Wright. He was a 5th-year senior. And I love the story of Brad because I was a center fielder. I could run really fast, but he saw that I couldn't hit, and he knew I couldn't hit, and he knew I wasn't strong enough. But where UCSB had was the sun would sit in right field. So if you're a right fielder, you had to look directly into the sun. And a lot of teams that would come and play there, a fly ball would be like a routine fly ball to right field would be hit, and it would fall for a hit.
Right.
Like that's how bad the sun was. And he said, I'm going to teach you how to play right field, because if you can learn to play defense here, you'll get to hit. So here's a 5th-year senior spending time with a redshirt freshman. He bought me a pair of sunglasses, and he invested in me in trying to field fly balls in right field.
Wow.
And that went a long way, because I ended up, like, if you go and look for some quotes back in the day, you'll see, like, it'll say anything Spilly does offensively is a plus, but he's there as a defensive right fielder, which I'm sure most people have never heard of. So like that's how I got my start, was to play the Sunfield UCSB. And my freshman year, so 2 years into college, I broke my hand. So in my first 2 years of college, I played in 12 games. And I didn't know what I was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be good or bad, but I kept working. So for 2 years, I had a chance to work and get better, even though I had no game experience.
Wow. No, man, you the one thing I know about your career is that the one thing I love about the show, I love to have underdog stories on the show, and you have that. Your story is the underdog story, which means you worked hard at it, you got to where you wanted to be, your career, and you had a great career. And obviously, I want to get to your draft experience, and you got drafted in 2002 in the 7th round with the Colorado Rockies. And what was that like, being with your family, waiting for your name to be called? And once you got your name called by the Rockies, what was that feeling like?
It was bittersweet, because it was disappointing, to be honest. I thought if you go, like, I was having a really good year. I had a really good year the year before. I was having a really good year that redshirt junior year. And a lot of publications had me as a second rounder. And what ended up happening is I basically went into a tailspin the last month and a half of the season. I couldn't hit. I was trying so hard, because I was caring more about results and getting drafted than I was playing the game. And I tailspun. I went backwards. So like the first couple rounds, I was totally locked in. And then as soon as he got to the 5th round, I checked out. I was like, I'm out. And when, walking around Santa Barbara, kind of disappointed. I'm like, what in the world? And then you get a phone call, in the mid-afternoon, and it was like, hey, the Colorado Rockies would like to take you in the 7th round. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, take me. So that's the story. And, like, we celebrate as a family, but there was for sure, there's disappointment, because I had expected in my mind that it was going to be something which, again, like, I didn't deserve to be drafted in the 2nd round.
Right.
Like, when I think back on it, I didn't deserve it. And it was another thing where, the story of the scout that saw me, his name is Billy Epler. Billy ended up being the general manager of the Angels.
Yep.
He was the assistant general manager with the Rockies, with the Yankees. And Billy was a surfer, and Billy loved to surf. There was a game at Long Beach State. There was probably a nice swell the next day. And Billy stayed through the 8th inning. UCSB's losing. I don't think I did anything. And late in the game, here comes a guy that was throwing hard, and I spun around a fastball and hit it out of Blair Field, which was not an easy place to hit a homer.
Oh, wow.
And Billy's like, whoa, like, that's pretty good. So on that swing, because a guy that was going to surf the next day stayed around a little bit longer, saw me, check marked me, and that's how I ended up with the Colorado Rockies. It's just,
wow,
it's kind of weird.
That's a crazy story. And Billy Epler, what a great young mind in the game, and he a great scout. Obviously, I'm a big Yankee fan, and he did great with us. And that's an amazing story. So for you now, going into the Rockies organizations, and you see players like Todd Helton, Brian Fuentes, and then you have a great talent roster. What goes to your mind when you see those names as your teammates?
Well, like, you don't even realize the major league roster. Like, you go into professional baseball, the major leagues seem so far away. Even when after you get drafted, it doesn't seem real. Like, Major League Baseball doesn't seem real. It just seems like you're going to, like, the next level of college. And my story is much more not an underdog story, but like people around me pushing me forward. Like, that's much more of the story. Like, that's why I'm giving you all the names of the people along the way, because I'm not here without them. It wasn't just me. And I think of the first day I show up in professional baseball in Tri-Cities, Washington. My roommate was drafted in the 8th round, so a round behind me, out of Oklahoma State. His name was Jeff Salazar. And Salazar was an outfielder. And before I even got there, I got there a handful of days late because I fake walked for UCSB. I had enough credits to walk, but I wasn't technically getting my diploma, which actually sits over here now. But I showed up a handful of days late to go through the song and dance of graduation. So Sally was not happy with me because I'm the 7th rounder. I'm an outfielder. I'm taken before him. And not only does he have to, like, I'm the last guy to show up, I'm his roommate. I'm his roommate. And I show up, I meet Sally, and he says, like, the second he meets me, and we're in Eugene because we're traveling for our first road series, he's like seething red. He's like, he can't stand me. And by the end of the night, him and I are best friends. And without Sally, without him pushing me along the way, because we were so competitive with each other. We loved each other, but we were like, if you did something good, I wanted to do something as good or better. And we were like, we were brothers. Like we were essentially brothers. He's the godfather to our children. Like, without Sally, if I didn't have Jeff Salazar as my first roommate, I'm not here. So yes, once you get to this big league level and you start seeing the roster of guys that are on there, the Todd Heltons and the Tito Fuenteses and the Matt Hollidays, but you don't get there without like an incredible amount of people pushing you forward. And then once you get there on that team, it's so weird when you finally get to the major league level because of all that, right? Like you're constantly pushing and all those little steps and all those little like happenstance and circumstance that happen along the way. When you get there, it's overwhelming because it feels like it wasn't just you that made it. It was like if 100 other people got to share that moment with you. And that's the part where you can recognize that when you go into a big league clubhouse, because even though it's the last name and you see the front of the jersey, you know that clubhouse is represented by like communities spread out all across baseball, and that there's similar stories along the way. So it becomes, a rite of passage, a badge of honor, whatever you want to call it. It becomes a lot easier to become a teammate when you recognize just how much and how hard it is to get to that level.
Yeah, so take me back when you got called up from the minors, and where were you at? And when they said you had to pack your bags, come to the big league team, and obviously you made your debut against the Reds, and your first hit came off of Todd Coffey. Take me back to that experience.
Yeah, so I'm in AAA. I was in AA in 2005. I was supposed to be the 4th outfielder at AA. The starting outfield was all prospects. So it was Sean Barker, Jeff Salazar, Tony Miller, and I was the 4th outfielder there. I was also kind of old for the league because I was a redshirt junior when I signed, so I was 22. So I knew I was kind of on the fence of my career. And Barker gets hurt in the first game, pulls his hamstring, and then I get a chance to play. And 3 months later, I'm getting called up to AAA. I'm in AAA for 3 weeks, and now you're getting to the AAA All-Star break, and our top prospect, his name's Chu Freeman, is in the outfield. And the day before All-Star break, he's running to first and pulls his groin. At the major league level that night, Matt Holliday gets hit with a fastball on his finger, breaks his finger. And we go to, so the next day's All-Star break.
Right.
My wife and I, we drive to Denver because I need to get a sports coat because it's going to be our first AAA travel. So we haven't traveled by a plane yet. And when I get back from Denver, there's the manager of our AAA team. His name is Marv Foley. So he's in the parking lot and he's like, "Oh, I was looking for you." I was like, "You need to be in Denver tomorrow." I was like, "What for?" He was like, You're on the big league team." I was like, "What?" And he has his family. He's about to go do vacation stuff with his family.
Right.
I was like, "So wait, I'm going to the big leagues?" He's like, "Yeah, you're going to the big leagues." And then as he was like, congratulations. And I love Mark Foley. We call him the dancing bear. As after he's like, oh yeah, I'll see you in a couple days too. You're not gonna be there for very long. So it was awesome. I mean, like to be able to I was literally in the parking lot with the new sports coat, a black one from, I forgot where I got it from. It was oversized. It didn't fit. And, you know, we run into the hotel that we're staying at in Colorado Springs, and we start calling everybody, calling mom and dad first. And, you know, and call my agent. His name was Bill Schuper. And, you know, I go work out in Coors Field the next day, and then we're flying to Cincinnati, and Bill Schuper ended up, you know, buying air flights for my whole family to be there in Cincinnati. And yeah, it was overwhelming. You know, it was crazy to know that I was going to start one of the games, and I did. I think it was game 2. And yeah, I mean, you get your first hit, and you're like, my first 2 at bats, I made an out. I struck out, and then I had a broken bat. My good bat that lasted for basically the whole year got blown up. And then here comes a reliever, and I get a base hit, score an RBI. I'm standing on first base. There's the mayor, Sean Casey, at first base, who's like, congratulations, guy. That is so awesome. I'm so happy for you. And I was like, thanks, man. And then I get a hit the next bat. He was like, now I'm not happy for you. You're getting too many hits.
Oh man.
But I mean, it seems surreal, like when you actually do it.
Yeah, Sean Casey, man, he's funny. So I gotta ask you though, what was it like? Obviously, throughout your career, what was it like playing Colorado in front of those? You guys have one of the best fan bases, in my opinion, in baseball. And what was it like playing in Colorado and being teammates with Todd Helton and and especially learning from Matt Holliday, another great outfielder out there?
Yeah, I mean, you care more about the people than you do the actual stats, or, you know, like the name recognition. I think for Todd is amazing because it goes back to my experience with him in AAA. I got my cup of coffee in 2005. He's on a rehab assignment in 2006. He's like, I'm there with Sally and my wife. We're in Colorado Springs, and he goes, "Hey, Spilly, you want to get dinner after the game?" And we're like, yeah. And I was like, "Do you mind if Stacy and Sally come?" He was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." Usually when a major leaguer rehabs, they're there for 5 innings and then they're out. So the game goes long. Every game in Colorado Springs is like a 12-hour game. And there's Todd sitting on the couch after the game. After he played 5 innings, he could have easily left. He stayed for the game. He said, "You guys ready to go?" We're like, "Yeah." So here we go. We have dinner with Todd, and we sat with him till like 2 a.m.
Wow.
And he was human to us, right? Like he's connecting with 2 AAA guys and his girl, like, and the guy's girlfriend. And, you know, like that went so far in our view of Todd, because, you know, this guy's won batting titles. He's one of the league's best. He's made $100 million. Like, there's all these things about him where you know, like, he shouldn't be this kind, and he was human. And like that really kind of connected us, which, you know, my favorite moment in the history of my baseball career wasn't Matt Holliday touching home plate in game 163. It was 2 weeks prior. Todd Helton hits a walk-off homer off Saito.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you watch the emotions of that team, because of how much we love Todd, like, if you called, you said, "Matt, what's one of your favorite moments you've ever had?" They called Matt Holliday. He said Todd Helton's homer. If you call and you talk to all the 2007 Rocky guys that went to the World Series, he said, "What's your favorite moment in that season?" They'll go, "Todd Helton's homer." They'll all say it.
Oh, wow.
They'll all say it. And it's because we love that guy so much. And we know what he went through, and we know how hard it was for a long period of time. I mean, the Rockies were a joke. You know, playing at Coors Field, it's considered circus baseball. You're playing baseball on the surface of the moon. You know, like, none of your stats are real. They're all fake.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to be a Rocky, to be honest, because you don't get the recognition that the organization deserves. You don't get recognition of being a good player because people assume that, you know, oh, you play for the Rockies, you're not that good. And it's frustrating because we know if I would have played in the Minnesota Twins organization, I would have made it to the big leagues with the Twins. Hopefully. Like I think I would have made it with any team. I just happened to make it with the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Rockies need to get more recognition. Obviously, they're a young and growing team, and but for you though, I want to take it back to your family because it seems it's really special when I see you guys, especially on Father's Day, Mother's Day. You guys wear those pink bat and then wear those pink stuff. And how special was it for you just to honor your mom because you were still playing when your mom passed away? And what was it like for you just to honor your mom on Mother's Day when you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, it was always hard. It was always emotional. Like it was something where, people say, hey, this thing's gonna, you're gonna feel better over time. That actually never happened. I still feel, I miss her every single day. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think as an athlete, you always want to perform regardless of the day, whether it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, you want to perform, you want to be a good player. But it definitely hits you. There's always some sort of reminder, a song on the radio, right? Like a movie. You walk by a picture that you hadn't seen in a while and it hits you. It's like, dang, I miss her. So it's like, all milestones along the way for any adult. You have your first kid, or the kid's walking for the first time, or it's your 10-year wedding anniversary, and you want your family there. And when you're missing some of them, it's always like, you pour one out for your mom, or for your cousin or whoever that you've lost along the way. So, uh, you know, any day, to be honest, any day that I put on a major league uniform was a day of celebration.
So looking back at your career, how grateful are you to be in this position, to be able to play the game that you love, to make your family proud, and playing the game of baseball, and also now now you're analyzing the game. But how grateful are you to be in this position right now to be able to play the game that you love?
I'm just trying to pass the love of the game forward. That's it. I
Yeah.
mean, if I can show you how much the game is, like if I could show you like some of the subtleties of the game, or take you inside the mind of a hitter that makes you fall in love with the game, or if I can tell you a story of a player that you didn't know about that makes you like that player more, I'm doing my job. And because I recognize how hard the sport is, I never took that for granted. Like it's awesome to be part of the fabric of it. Like I know that there's been 22,000 players in the history of our game, including the Negro Leagues, which is amazing. It's about time. I know that there's a couple hundred former baseball players that are broadcaster. I'm part of a very small group,
Yeah.
and I recognize that. And like I said earlier, like I don't take anything for granted. I don't expect people to give me stuff. I feel like I'm constantly having to earn it. And as an athlete that made it to that level, and now as a broadcaster that has been given this opportunity, like all I care about is like savoring everything and making sure that if there's somebody out there, I'm not looking to inspire. I'm just looking to like share my love of the game with you. And if you end up loving it, awesome. But I don't ever want to take the love of the sport away from anybody.
So what's it like now being an analyst and working on MLB Network Radio, being a host there, and obviously you do a great job. And what's it like just to seeing the game change and seeing young talent come up?
I love it. I mean, the game deserves a change. I'm all for change. I want to see baseball expand. I want to see baseball keep getting bigger and bigger. I want to see more athletes involved. I want to see more diversity in the game. I want to see more diversity in front offices and coaching staffs. I mean, the sports for everyone. Sports are for everyone. That's why I'm proud when we find out that we have an openly gay NFL athlete. Like, it's great. Like, hopefully we get to a place where the environments that we have created within sports are open and accepting, and allow for advocacy and encouragement. And, like, as somebody that's on radio and gets to talk about our sport, I want to make sure that people know, like, hey, our sport needs to improve.
Right.
We got to get better. We have to, like, the things that work, let's make sure we keep doing it. But if there's things that aren't working, if there's ways that we can engage in community, if there's ways that we can support better fields in our backyard, then let's figure it out. and let's use radio as a platform. Let's use television as a platform. If there's somebody that wants to talk about something that's important to our game that we're not paying attention to, here's a platform. I'm all ears. I want to hear from you.
Right.
So like, that's how I look at all these different mediums that I'm a part of. It's how do we improve what we already have so that we can continue to pass this thing forward and it becomes better than what we had it.
So what advice would you give to these young kids or young athletes that are trying to get to their goals?
Don't quit. I mean, if you're passionate about it, yeah, don't quit. I mean, if I told you that there is a singular characteristic that is true amongst all successful people, you'd probably ask me what it is. And I can tell you what it is. And what's amazing about it is that it doesn't take special talent to do it. The best players, the best people are constantly asking others how to get better. That's it. Like that's my advice. If you really love something, you seek out information. You know you're going to get bad. You're going to be bad at times. That's part of the process. Learn from the mistakes. Ask how to get better. The ones that don't ask how to get better, they stop. You can only go as far as the knowledge you know. And so if you, like I said, like I was taught breathing, I was taught, a simple approach by this guy. If I didn't ask for it, I would never have learned it. And so if you want to get to the next level in anything you do, you have to ask people, how do I get better? I can't put it any simpler than that.
Yeah. So now we do this fun little segment on the show. It's called the rapid fire segment. You ready for this?
Yep.
All right. I just want to get right to this because what are your thoughts on these now Empire second pitchers about these sticky stuff? And Max Scherzer and Sergio Romo apparently didn't like it yesterday.
It's part of it. You're gonna have some guys that are not gonna like the process. I certainly get it with Max Scherzer yesterday. Joe Girardi also had a point. I've watched Girardi saying, like, I've watched this guy pitch for 10 years. I've never seen him go to his hat like that in his hair. You listen to Scherzer talk about it, he's like, I don't have any sticky stuff. I'm just trying to use sweat. The only place that I could sweat.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have this because it's brand new. You're going to have growing pains. We had it with replay. We still have it with replay. We have it with everything. I think as players kind of grin and bear it for a little bit, the umpires don't want to have to do this. We all get it. Hopefully we have a better solution. I think having played in Japan and saw that the baseballs had a natural tack to it, that's the first place I start. If baseball doesn't want to use a tacked baseball cover, then make a universal substance that pitchers can use right on the back of the mound that everybody's fine with. The game is you're talking about baseballs that if you've ever felt a baseball after they've been rubbed, certainly in Colorado we have no humidity. So any baseball out for an extended period of time becomes really slick.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, you're just trying, you just, like I said earlier, you're just trying to push this game forward. And so whenever you're trying to do something like this, you're going to have bumps in the road, but just stick to it. They'll be fine.
Favorite memorable game that you played in college, in the majors, and then experience in Japan?
Favorite college game? I mean, we won a tournament in Hawaii back in 2001 where like our college group realized that we were really damn good. Like that was really fun to win that tournament. It ended up pushing us all the way to a regional, which was, like the Gauchos at the time hadn't gone to a regional since 1988. So it was like the first time in like 20 years that we made a regional. So that was cool. I think from professional baseball standpoint, game 163 for me stands out in the major leagues. That's the Rockies, Padres, game 163 in 2007. It ended up on a sac fly to right field where Matt Holliday slides in safe.
Yeah.
And everybody asked if he touched it. That's probably Like my most memorable game besides, the Helton home run, the walk-off homer off Saito, which is like my favorite baseball moment. And then played in Japan was weird. I mean, there's not a lot that stood out in Japan other than that I love the culture. I wish I would have gone back for a second year, but it was also time for me to be a dad. That was really hard on our family being there for 8 months without seeing them. But I loved it. It was fun. It was disheartening because of their, like some of the culture differences. They don't allow gaijin, which is, considered like gaijin is translated as an alien. Gaijin, if you're not doing well immediately, you get sent down to the minor leagues, and I got sent down twice when I knew I could hit at that level. And so that was the part that was frustrating. Was I wish I could have done better in Japan, but I didn't. But it was, I mean, you talk about really fun baseball. It was awesome. It was a great experience.
Yeah. So, would you say that Shohei Ohtani is the best player you have seen all around player you have seen in baseball? Shohei Ohtani.
I mean, I played against him when he was 19 in Japan. It's really hard to say that because Shohei, the best hitter I've ever seen was Barry Bonds. Nobody's even close to that. Like even with Todd Helton, Larry Walker, Hall of Famers, in my opinion, nobody's ever hit like Barry Bonds. I mean, he really was. He was that much better than everybody else. As far as like sheer athleticism, I've been around some pretty good players. Trevor Story's a crazy athlete. Troy Tulowitzki was a crazy athlete. Carlos Gonzalez could do anything. But Shohei Ohtani, the mix of being a top of the rotation starter and then being able to hit the ball as far as he has, like we're probably witnessing something that we'll never see again, to be honest. But it doesn't make him the best player I've ever seen.
Right.
He's doing something that we as a generation of baseball fans will probably never ever see, but that doesn't make him the best. It makes him remarkable. And so Mike Trout is probably the best player we will see during this time frame. But Ohtani is doing things that, like you're going to tell your children, like I saw Ohtani threw 101 and hit a ball 502 feet. But he wasn't the best player on the field. Mike Trout was.
Yeah. So for you, obviously, what are your thoughts on this Colorado Rockies team? They're kind of up and down and shaky and still growing as a team. But what are your thoughts on their young talent? Do you see them trading Trevor Story this year?
They're kind of in a weird spot now because they've lost a bunch of front office people. So I would hope that they would trade Trevor because I think you can get some returns. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. I think if you can get anything better than a compensation pick, I think you're doing well for yourself. The Rockies are in a transition. They refuse to say it, but they are. They have 5 wins currently as of today on the road, which is so crazy to think about because if I told you the Arizona Diamondbacks have lost 23 straight on the road and still have a better record than the Rockies, how do you explain that?
Right.
It's crazy. So it's a transition year. There's going to be some guys that won't be part of the team next year. I think the bigger picture looking at it is who's going to be on the team 3 years from now.
Right.
And I can't answer that because 3 years from now with this organization where they're currently at, seems like light years away.
So I know that you're an analyst and you're a broadcaster and host, but if the right opportunity comes for you, would you consider being a manager or a bench coach? Because I think you can become a great coach in the majors, in my opinion. I
appreciate that. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of irons in the fire. I think I've always I have like a leader kind of perspective of things. If I wasn't playing baseball, I'd probably be a principal of an elementary school or a high school. So I'm currently getting an MBA in leadership. So I don't know. I rarely turn down opportunities. So if something popped up that interests me and it means I can still grow the game, then I'm all for it.
I want to get to your name because Spilly, who gave you that name? Who shortened it for you, Spilly? And then your Twitter says Spilly Goat.
Yeah, so I got that from So Spilborghs really tough to say. So I became Spilly in high school. And then when I got to college, as I got better and better in the outfield, I would catch all the fly balls in right field, like trash fly balls. And Dave Molitor, who's a roommate of mine, he's like a goat out there. So he called me the Spilly Goat.
Oh, wow.
And so that's how I got the nickname, the Spilly Goat. And then I usually, like Goat in 2001 and 2000, people weren't really referencing as the greatest of all time, but I was, because that's just what we said. So I was Spilly Goat since college, but I was Spilly in high school.
Oh, wow. Funniest teammate that you play with, and funniest person that you work with right now?
Funniest player, gosh, Jeff Salazar is pretty funny. The Godfather, my best friend. He's funny. And then funniest broadcaster, somebody that makes me laugh all the time, Mike Farron's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Mudcat Grant, Mark Grant's really funny. The funniest broadcasters easily is Dwayne Kuiper, Mike Krukow, San Francisco.
Oh,
those guys are the funniest guys in baseball. Two former players, they love on each other. Kuiper's fighting cancer right now, so I always think about him. If you look up Dwayne Kuiper, he goes down in history as having the most at bats and having only one home run in his career.
oh, wow.
So he's famous for one homer. So we make fun of him all the time.
Mike Farron was on the show here recently too. He was he's a great analyst of the game too. And I want to ask you, I'm a big Yankee fan, and what are your thoughts on them? And obviously they're consistent or inconsistent some days. And do you think they can make the playoffs?
I'm off of the Yankees right now because they can't stay healthy. I'm not a huge fan of their offense because it seems like it's feast or famine for them. Like if they were healthy, and I continue to say even on the radio programs, like I'm not going to assess the Yankees until August. I can't. Tampa's a pain in the butt. Boston's much better than people think, but I think the biggest challenge for this year for anybody, it's not talent. This year's not about talent. It's about health.
Yeah.
So the healthiest team is going to the playoffs. And the Yankees, if you're a Yankees fan, you have not been healthy for one day this entire year. And so what makes you think that you're going to have your healthiest squad for an extended period of time to make a run? I don't see it. I see it more with Tampa because they don't operate the same way. They're not dependent upon key names. Same with the Red Sox. The Red Sox are just kind of like, they're a unit. The Yankees are too dependent upon key names that if one of them gets hurt, which they have been, then they go backwards for a long period of time. So I'm not buying the Yankees, but I'm also not writing them off, especially until I see a couple more months of baseball.
So before we get to the last two things, I'm sure you've been watching the NBA playoffs too. Who do you have in the NBA Finals?
Well, I like the Suns. How can you not like the Suns?
Yeah.
I just think the Clippers are kind of beat up. But I don't know. I like the Suns. I think the Suns will be good.
How about the Eastern Conference?
I haven't been paying attention to it other than, KD has been sick and I love watching him play. If KD can get there, then, I think he becomes part of that conversation again. Like, is he top 10, basketball players of all time? So
the Nets are out though. Now it's the Hawks and Bucks.
Oh yeah. It's what's his name? Trey Young.
Trey Young.
Yeah. Putting out the lights. I don't know. I don't follow the Eastern Conference because I feel like it's always been kind of crappy. But I like the Western Conference better. I'm a Nuggets, Lakers, Suns guy. So I don't pay attention to the East.
Yeah. So the last two things now, our team is part of this foundation called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach, but now he's the offensive coordinator at Tennessee State with Eddie George, and we're trying to help him prevent human trafficking making sure the community stays safe and the kids stay safe. So I'll send you the page for you and your wife to check it out.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. Any way we can help.
Yeah. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Thank you. I mean, we're not here without you guys. And I think the most disappointing part of everything that's happened is that I think we've lost sight of what it feels like to have empathy for other people. So I certainly have empathy for our doctors and nurses that have been fighting this thing for over a year, even as things became politicized, where, you know, like you're watching people suffer and die and families get torn apart. And that has not been lost upon me at all. And so we appreciate you, but it has to go a lot more beyond words.
Yeah.
You know, like I could say I have empathy for nurses and doctors, but I need to, you know, if you see a doctor or nurse, like give them a hug, like give them a high five, take him out to dinner, buy him a coffee,
Or give them free tickets to games, sporting events, free tickets.
any of those things. Yeah, all for it.
Yeah, and well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 829 with former MLB outfielder Ryan Spilborghs, aka Spilly Goat. Go follow him on Twitter. He does a great job analyzing the game. You can find him on MLB Network Radio, and he's an analyst too. And thank you again for coming on the show. It was truly an honor, and we would like to have you back as a returning guest at some point so you can meet the full team. But keep up the great work, man. This has been an honor, and you and your family stay safe.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.